So welcome back to our final session of the day. David Mahan, I'm looking at you. So I'm very pleased to welcome Matt Bergman to the stage. Matt is a program director and assistant professor at the University of Louisville and author of the book, which by the way is out in the lobby, Unfinished Business, Compelling Stories of Adult Student Persistence. His research focuses on adult retention and persistence, prior learning assessment, leadership, and degree completion. His work has appeared in prestigious refereed journals as well as national media outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the Chronicle of Higher Education, NPR, and Time Magazine, and he has been recognized for innovative teaching and programs by the Association of Continuing Higher Education, the American Association for Adult and Continuing Education, the American Public and Land-Grant Universities, the Gaines Foundation, Metroversity, and the University of Louisville. Bergman also serves as a fellow for Complete College America, where he advocates for adult degree completion both locally and nationally. Please join me in welcoming Matt Bergman.
All right, am I on? Can you hear me? Good to go? Okay, not yet. How about now? Not yet. How about now? I have to turn this on? Okay. That may be the whole entire problem here. When the mic says on in your pocket, that's when it works. Okay. I was nervous about turning it on because I felt like the minute I turned it on, I'd be talking about like a glass of bourbon or something over here with my colleagues, and you would be like, why is he drinking bourbon at before noon? And I'm not. It's tea. Every time someone walks in with a tea, it looks like they're drinking bourbon because we're in Kentucky. That's what happens. All right, so I'm here today to talk about and try and take us home and talk about the case for an adult-friendly institution. So I'm going to move around a little bit. I'll come around downstairs, upstairs, sitting next to Jerry Jackson from the University of Cumberland. I'll work my way around the room a little bit probably and interact with you all. So I want you to know that if you have questions as I'm talking, raise your hand, stop me, and let's have a conversation because simply we need to do this as a solidarity movement. And what I mean by that is on our campuses, oftentimes we are marginalized in our programs. I call our program, what do I call it? Red-headed cash cow. Because we are the red-headed stepchild, and we are a cash cow. Our students are not part of the overall fabric of the institution because they don't reside on the institution all that often. They're taking evening classes off campus, they're taking online classes. So they don't know about some of the support services and campus activities. On top of that, we have students that use their tuition assistance and don't have the need for some of the financial aid structures that we have for our institutions. So they're bringing in a lot of money. On top of that, we have 5 faculty for 500 students. But we're still doing a great job because we hire industry professionals as adjuncts and we make sure that the content comes to life in a relevant, rigorous, and research-based way. So we find ways to make it work. We find ways to advocate on our own behalf, and we're finding ways to grow. And I'm happy to report at this moment we have the largest enrollment in program history, and that is over 500 students despite the declines that we're seeing nationally in adult enrollment. And why is that happening? Unemployment rate is under 3.9%. So how are you thinking about going back to school when things are going so well economically and with the work? So I'm going to talk about the case for earning while learning, as was mentioned earlier today. So first we've got the realities of the situation and why we're here, and that is 36 million people with some college no degree. So NCS just published the report, and 2 in 5 working age adults has some college no degree. So what's true about these individuals? At some point in their life, they enrolled to try and persist and graduate. They didn't say, you know what, I'm thinking about going to college, I might take a class or 2. I'm not worried about a degree. I would say at least 35 of the 36 million said, I am going to school, I plan to graduate, and here's what I want to do as a result of that graduation. But somewhere along the way, life intervened, right? Life happened. And what we see is that over 50% of those individuals that separate from our institutions, the main reason is not GPA. But what do our faculty think on our campuses? Well, and if they couldn't hack it, so they're just not college ready. As Mike Krause said, the guy at the Rotary Club said, not everybody's cut out for college. Well, did your kids go to college? Who are we to say who should and should not go? We vet these individuals, and if they meet the standard requirements, we should allow them into our institutions, and now we have to get more adult friendly. Because so many more jobs out in the workforce, according to CPE, according to Georgetown Workforce Education Center, will require some form of post-secondary education. So much so that every job that goes away, the vast majority of those jobs are from non-post-secondary credential requiring positions. Everything that's going away are those low-skill jobs. Everything that's coming along, whether it's proliferated or it's reality, requires some form of post-secondary education. So what do we see in HR vetting processes? We see an incremental growth in what is required to go back to get that job. So the sales job of the 90s and the sales job of today is drastically different in the requirements, but not all that drastically different in the activity. But HR vetting processes to try and cull down and get to a repository of individuals that should be eligible to take those roles is not necessarily going to take the experience into account as much as they probably should. So we have to get more post-secondary educational credentials. And we're seeing the demographic cliff coming. We've heard this over and over. Roughly 15% of the humans were not born. So what happened? The Great Recession happened. And in some ways, I'm very thankful for the Great Recession. Do you want to know why? Because for so many years, I've fought to try and shove my foot in the door and say adults should matter on your campus. And for so many years, we've been dismissed. But as a result of the Great Recession, Mom and Dad weren't getting busy as much. And the babies were not born. So birth rate declined, and guess what happens? In 18 years from that moment, that big Great Recession decline in birth rate, when that turns 18, that has a dramatic impact on our college campuses. And that's what we're seeing in roughly 5 years from today. And that's why we as professionals now have a voice that we didn't necessarily have previously. And we're starting to become part of the overall campus community conversation. And I'm thankful for that, Jenny. So thanks for letting me in the door. So here's the deal. I want you to reframe the way that you think about adults, because oftentimes the narrative that we see about these individuals is just not the truth. And while there may be elements of this that we cannot dismiss, the fact that people are under-resourced and don't have the economic stability to pursue education doesn't mean that we can't get them there through innovative and agile practices. So the same old story is the fact that these folks, they're first generation, so they just don't know how to navigate higher education. They come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. They had these low grades. I mean, they failed out. They were miserable. They partied too much, whatever it was. And they're likely to need development. But that's absolutely not the truth. And while some students may be under-resourced, here's the real story.
I have all this work experience. I'm a smart guy. I'm not bad looking. Let's get this degree, let's get the paperwork, and let's put it all together.
Hello, I'm Dr. Matt Bergman from the Organizational Leadership and Learning Program here at the University of Louisville. Here today with current and former students to talk about their experiences in online learning. So I want to ask the group, what have you gained as being part and being a student of the Organizational Leadership and Learning Program?
I had been passed over for promotions because I didn't have a degree. And so I returned to school at the age of 46. What I've realized during the courses is that it was so applicable to everything that I do and that I've been doing for 30 years.
I know for me, like looking back when I was in the military, as I moved into leadership roles, I invested so much of myself into it that I kept saying, I don't have time for this school thing. Everybody would say, oh, you need to go to school, you need to go to school. Oh, I don't have time, I'm too busy. But every time I take a class and I'm learning something new, I think, gosh, I wish I would have had this when I was working.
For me, and it sounds like for you as well, is that it connects the dots. It's going to increase responsibility, which comes with more work, but it comes with more pay as well. The average working adult would love to get closer and closer to that six-figure mark, and getting this type of degree absolutely can get you there.
A unique feature of the Organizational Leadership and Learning Program is our prior learning assessment process, where we can acknowledge some of the college level and credit-worthy learning that has occurred outside the confines of the college walls for college credit. So tell me a little bit about your experience with prior learning assessment and how that made an impact in your trajectory in our program.
The class really teed up a way to look at our life experience and begin extracting the value of that, right? Like just piece by piece. Your day-to-day busyness role, right, as a middle-level manager here had this relevancy. And it just took all of those bits and pieces and it kind of stacked that knowledge, that experience on top of each other to kind of show exactly everything that you've learned through life.
And then once you get into the thick of the work and building up your portfolio, it's a great reflection on what you've done over the years. And
it's validation for what you've done.
Absolutely.
The conversation changes. It turns into, well, heck yes, you're going to give me that credit. I've done all this. I've done so much stuff. I am an incredibly impressive professional. Right. So let me go ahead and transition to the next question. Why U of L? Why did you choose the University of Louisville?
Who wouldn't want to go to Louisville? I mean, for some people in today's society, titles mean a lot. Being a graduate of the University of Louisville and to be considered an alumni, that's a big deal. And then you tie it in with your life of being a Cardinal fan and say, I'm not only a fan, but I'm an alumni.
The University of Louisville stands for greatness. Yeah. I associated that with people that cared and people that were successful, not just financially, right, but people that had depth and meaning and purpose, and I wanted to be a part of that. Absolutely. So for me, that's why U of L.
I love it. Okay, so why online? And why did you feel like, with your working and busy lives and all your family commitments, why did you think you could do it?
I know from my schedule, I leave the house at 6 a.m. and I get in at about 8:30 at night. But for online, when I do find those downtime places, I'm able to get on and knock out 15, 20, 30 minutes of something versus, oh, I got class, but I got to drop the kid off here, or I got the cable guy coming, something like that. So while the cable guy's there, guess what? I'm in class and I'm working.
A regular classroom setting, I struggled. I struggled just to stay engaged and to pay attention. And my notebooks from when I went to college right out of high school, I had pages full of doodles and flames and all kinds of things, right? Like, definitely wasn't engaged. And the online coursework, where I can sit in a coffee shop because I like to watch people, right? I can look up and I can distract myself a little bit, or part of my brain a little bit. And one of the professors, he videoed a lesson from his kitchen table. And immediately I felt connected, because I'm like, look, this is just a guy in a t-shirt sharing his experiences, sharing his knowledge with me, and it helped me connect with him so much faster.
What would you tell that person that's sitting on the fence, that's considering coming back, but needs a little nudge?
Listen, I've been that guy on the couch and said, I am never going back to school. It's too much time. You got to do too many things. And it was like, I don't want to go down here to the university admissions office with a bunch of kids younger than my own kids, and you know, all those fears that you come. And at the end of the day, like this program, everybody has the same story to a sense. You know, we're all adults. We probably have families. We probably have responsibilities. We probably have career jobs already. And it's a no-judge zone. It's just a great testament for students who are looking to find their niche and find their avenue of furthering their education.
Whatever direction you want to go, whatever leadership looks like in your career, in your personal life, whatever that is, this program will provide the foundation for that, for the diversity to lead wherever that takes you.
Go, Cup.
All right, so strip all the branding. Strip all the branding off of that. Just strip it out. I understand it's Louisville, blah, blah, whatever. We're great, greatness, whatever. Who cares about that? Every one of your campuses stands for greatness because of what you put into your programs. And that is absolutely the truth. You all are working so hard for your students every single day. You're putting in extra hours. You're putting in nights and weekends. You are committed to these people because they need a very flexible approach to have some love and some acknowledgement that they're worthy of your time and effort. So strip all the branding off of that and know that these are your people. These are your potential students, these are your current students, these are your future students. And despite whatever challenges they have financially or with family, the truth is they're pretty high performing. They're earning a living, they're keeping jobs, they're making it work. It's crazy. Like, it's a crazy busy schedule, but it's still darn impressive when you do a reflection exercise and you find out that these people really have some pretty impressive aspects of their resume. They have strong family backgrounds in many, many cases. And whether it's their family or their friends' support network, there are a bunch of people that love these working adults. And they're going to support them and find ways to reorient time so that they can come back and finish. All we have to do is create the environment that allows that to occur. The minute it becomes flexible, convenient, and a dramatic change in their quality of life, who wouldn't want to sign up? And what do we know about adults when they return? Who's instructed adults in their career? Been an instructor or advisor? What grade do adults want when they go back to the classroom? An A. A plus. I've almost been threatened with a knife fight over an A. Like, I feel like people want to challenge me to a cage match. Can we have a cage match for extra credit? Because I really want this A. Adults are so focused on trying to make sure that they get these high grades. And the minute you acknowledge and value that that's their intention, you can get more out of them because you build the trust so that they create more engagement and they immerse themselves into the content and get more out of it. So there are deeper learning outcomes potentially from this population. So why do they return? We heard from Dan. The number one reason this morning, Dan Ash, he said, what was the number one reason? Workplace advancement, earn money. What do we see? Billboards all over. Get more money, advance your career. In a study I did, workplace advancement was a close number 2. So what was number 1? Personal fulfillment. Number 1 was personal fulfillment. And you know who's figured this out? Mega universities. Watch a University of Phoenix commercial. What do they tap into? The emotion. the emotion of what it means to be a college graduate. So we have to think, we got to advance these folks in the marketplace so they could have a better job and they can earn more money. But the underlying piece of this is they've got this lingering stigma that they're trying to just get this monkey off their back because they have a lot of college credit, or they have some college credit, or they're sitting in a boardroom and people are talking about their school experience. They can't engage in that conversation. Or they just list on their resume that there was some attendance at an institution, but they sure don't feel great about it. The minute we re-engage with these folks and get them there as quickly as possible with relevant, rigorous, and research-based content, it's on. They're ready to go sing your praises. And what's true about a person that's a working adult versus a person that's a traditional age student graduating? For my advancement folks in the room, if you're well established in your career and you graduate the next day, who's going to be the more likely donor to the institution? So if you're struggling with budget to do events, if you're struggling with budget to find academic programming, think about a way to tie in with your advancement or your development office. Why? If these working professionals are ready to give back pretty quick, they've got some skin in the game. And then third, very close third, was inspiration of family and children. So we know that. We hear it from our adults. I want to walk the talk. I've told my kids education's so important, I got to do it myself. And just like we heard from the panel, saw his mom graduate when he was 13. It's a dramatic change, right? This particular study was based on a baccalaureate degree. So it was a four-year institution study. But my gut tells me that it would be very similar with some shuffling of those rank order reasons. And there is no doubt that we are a more consumer-driven society, so that workplace advancement piece is definitely going to obviously take precedent in some cases. But you know the emotion of this is at the heart of a lot of these decisions when they come back, because they want that self-efficacy. They want to advance themselves. They want a really high quality of life. And every statistic they see about earning more and having a high quality profession says that more education is going to get you there. So I created a model, and within this model are three constructs: student entry, external, and internal campus environment. And I put this slide up only because this is in the research literature, and it's a fancy path model. But here's a better chart that you can see. So I conceptualize these ideas based upon all the literature that's been put out about adult student enrollment and persistence and retention and everything in the literature. Within this grouping of variables are things that we cannot control as higher education institutions: external environmental influences, background characteristics. These are very static factors in the background entry characteristics. We can't change someone's age. We can't change their parental educational attainment. These are just variables that come to us, but do influence the person's ability to graduate. So we have to take into account and find ways to mitigate some of the struggles that are faced as a result of some of the challenges from these external and then entry characteristics. We cannot dismiss that, because if we just focus on the internal campus environmental variables, we're only hitting a third of the pie, thinking about a person's full life. And life is just going to happen. So when I did the multivariate analysis, because at the univariate analysis, so basically doing correlations on all these variables, just about every single one of them was predictive of a person's ability to persist. So everyone on this list. But when you get down in the weeds a little bit and you control for certain variables, I found that educational goal was a predictive in the background characteristics. And what that really means is for every growth in a person's interest in getting to an associate's, getting to a bachelor's, getting to a master's, getting to a PhD, a person was 1.5 times more likely to reach their goal of finishing a 4-year degree in this particular study. In the external environment, I was sure, because I was an advisor, and I sat with thousands of people, thousands of students. And what was the common thing that kept them from re-enrolling? Significant life events. Life just intervening. This was happening. And I was like, this is going to be the major finding of my study, and I'm going out on the road and I'm going to tell everybody about how to work around significant life events. Well, guess what didn't bear out in the research? Significant life events was not predictive at the multivariate level. So univariate correlational is good, but then when you control for some other variables, and why is that? Why is that? Anybody know? Everybody has significant life events. Think about your own situation. I remember 3 different times where I was sitting on the end of a hospital bed writing my dissertation. For my dad, for my father-in-law, and for my other father-in-law. Isn't that true for everybody else? Oh, well, I'm getting deployed to Korea. Oh, well, I'm going through a divorce. Oh, my kid's sick. Oh, my parents are sick. These things happen because we're adults. You get past a certain threshold and life is just going to kick you in the butt over and over and over again. So what we found was that significant life events happen to all of us, and there are ways to work through that, and it was not predictive of a person's ability to persist. What we found was finances were most predictive, and that's logical. But it conceptualizes so differently across the spectrum of our adults. Because if you're categorized as an adult at 24 or 25 based upon the literature, that means you're an adult from 25 until you're alive. So a student can re-enroll at any moment, right? So we have these stories across the country of people graduating in the 80s, in their 90s. And they're awesome, right? But the person in their 80s or 90s or 50s or 60s with their finances is dramatically different than the person that's 25 or 28 living in their parents' basement making $35K thinking, I got all the money, I can go to school whenever. So they can make it work, but they don't have as many resources. But they have the infrastructure in place, they don't have as much income, but they have all the income in the world because of all the support systems. Whereas a person that's 54 in a family that earns $120,000 that has 5 kids, how much money do you think they can parse out for school? Like $0, right? So the person that makes 120 versus the person that makes 35,000, finance is conceptualized in such a different way than I ever expected. And this is a really important finding for us to understand that it is truly about helping our students understand the perception of their ability to pay, understanding all their life influences, all the variables that impact them, and finding ways to carve out space to do it slowly, quickly, or somewhere in between. And last but not least, the thing that we can control was my major finding of this particular study. And it's what I want to tell everybody here. As you go back to your campuses and you tell your faculty about this, the predicted 40+% of the variance in a person's ability to persist to graduation. And that is active and relevant content. If we engage these people and plug them into general education classes immediately, what happens? I got a bad taste immediately. Like, why am I taking this science? I'm 42 years old. I don't want to take natural science. They still will have to take natural science. But it should be in their 4th or 5th or 6th semester. integrate those pieces that are not as top of mind later in the academic progression. When people plug in and they get into a content area, you saw it in the video. Oh, I studied this concept in organizational change, and the next day I walked into work and I employed everything that I learned, and now I have a new common language or vernacular that propels me forward as a more highly qualified professional. The content, if it's relevant, provides context, knowledge, skills, and abilities that our students can immediately take. So the overarching idea is that we want to get to this 60% by 2030. But in the weeds, we're making these people's lives better. And the minute we offer active and relevant content to make sure that when they plug in, they are finding value in what they're doing, they're more likely donors. They're more likely advancing in their professional life. They're more likely to take those learning concepts and make their families better. They impact the cycle and generational influences for their family for years and years to come, because they think and feel and operate differently because of the content that we've introduced them to make their lives better. So what do we have to do? We obviously have to find coursework or create programs that speak to these individuals. And it is wide-reaching. It is in the humanities, it's in the hard sciences, it's in broad-based leadership studies. It's all over the map. People want this stuff, and the minute you can make it relevant to their context, they're going to plug in. And to do that, you have to create and get out of this 16-week model. We do the 8-week classes. So who's heard of 15 to finish? 15 to finish. I love CCA. 15 to finish is fantastic. It is empirically proven to impact graduation rate. But what can't adults do each semester? Take 15 to finish. So we figured out a different way. Break down a fall, spring, winter, summer. I said winter in there. Fall, first 8 weeks. Second 8 weeks, one class at a time. Winter, compressed winter session, 5 weeks. Spring, first 8 weeks. Second 8 weeks. Summer, try and plug one in the first summer session, second summer session, third summer session. What is 8 times 3? 24. It's pretty darn close to 30. If you can compress these schedules and find ways to create pathways for these individuals to take one class at a time, they will graduate at a much higher level. If we say, take 5 different classes from 5 different instructors, get 5 books, the minute we do that to a working professional, what happens? They're gone. They are gone. It's just not going to work for them unless they love locking themselves in a closet and not having any social interaction with any other humans, which is just not healthy for anyone. The coaching piece is essential as well. Our advisors are some of the best in the business. I would challenge anyone in the world. We got the best at University of Louisville. But I know that you probably all feel that same way about your colleagues. These are the frontline individuals that make the big difference in grabbing these folks and saying, come on, we're going, we're still going. You got to stay enrolled. I know this is happening in life, but this is a solidarity movement. We're all going to lift one another up. We'll get there together. The trust and cooperation with organizations is another key, and I think the lifeblood for sustainability as an industry. So higher education, if we plug into and connect with industry partners, we can get tuition assistance from them. We can help them grow their and retain their workforce, and their employees do not have debt. So it's like a triple threat situation to sustain us as an industry. The more we partner with them through tuition discounting, through specialized programs, the more we have a lifeblood for the entirety of the history of higher education and workforce development. So find ways to find community partners, because they will send you students, and these students will be very motivated to do good work, and they could very well walk out completely debt-free. And prior learning assessment. Everyone in this room, every institution should be doing prior learning assessment. And here are the 4 reasons that I believe that. If your faculty are naysayers and skeptics, if your administration says you're taking away money out of the bottom line for tuition, here's your ammunition. Prior learning assessment in a 48 institution study, which has been replicated in a 70 institution study, which is about to launch very soon, has shown that individuals that have access to PLA increase their rate and their pace to graduation. Number 1, so people that have access, they're getting there faster. Number 2, students are more engaged, and here's why. Because you plug them into a reflective process, and you hear exactly what you heard from the video. Oh my gosh, look at all that I've learned. Oh man, I'm pretty impressive. And they feel more assimilated into the academic setting, better writers, more ready to move forward into a curriculum. Number 3, the most counterintuitive point that I've ever put on a slide, and that is students that have access to PLA take 9.9 more credits. So here's the person in your president's office saying, you're taking money away from the bottom line, taking money that we could collect in tuition revenue. Well, that's absolutely not true. And why would this possibly be a reality? How in the world could students take more credit if they're getting prior learning assessment credit? Does anybody have an idea? Yeah. So they take on more, they feel like they want to get it done, they feel engaged. They stay and they finish. Look at the national statistics on adults, working adults, and retention. It's bad. The minute we acknowledge these folks and show them that it's a clearer pathway and the light at the end of the tunnel is a little brighter, we actually get more tuition revenue because our retention rate grows so much that impacts the bottom line positively. 9.9 more credits than those that didn't have access to PLA. So we boost retention, we boost revenue. And last but not least, and I have some philosophical differences with some of my scholars out in the field about PLA. But I state that PLA is generally awarded for non-major credit. There may be a class or 2 in there, but you need to tell everyone on the faculty, we are not impinging upon your discipline. We're not messing with your major. We're not taking away courses from your major. And if we do, it might be 1. But we're not getting into the major because there is a pocket of elective credits where if you're going to give someone AP credit as a 16, 17-year-old for general courses, why wouldn't you give the 42-year-old mid-level executive some college credit towards their elective? So walk back to your campus and say, PLA is just AP for adults. You're okay with AP, let's get okay with PLA. So as colleges, as we've stated, and Dawn Medley, if you attended one of the breakouts, she said, as well as CCA says, as well as my friend Sarah Ansel at Student Success Strategy says, we need to really think about who we were 15 years ago and how we serve students. We served Skippy 15 years ago. Mike Krause's slide of Skippy, it really just hit home with me. And whether that was the 40s or 60s or 80s or 90s, that was the way we operated. But today we operate drastically differently. And I know that's true for the vast majority of your institutions. We're thinking much differently about how we innovate and how we're agile to meet the needs of our students. And we need to create that messaging for our people. The individuals we're reaching out to, these recruits, need to understand that we're not saying, we'll give you another chance. You're probably an idiot, but you failed out. I'm sure you drank too much, whatever it was. Stop that. It may or may not be the truth. What we need to say is just give us another chance. We're different. We've grown. We understand your needs. We can fit this into your life in a way that would get you to the finish line without impacting you so dramatically. Just give me 2 hours a night. Forget Netflix for like 2 hours and focus on this content. Just put it on the shelf for a minute and focus on this content, and your life will absolutely get better. So get our students into this mindset. Find the right match. Find that content area, that discipline that works for them. Ask the hard questions so that you're putting them into a program that is going to be predictive of their persistence to graduation. Transfer articulation, and I could do a full presentation about this, but there was a recent study that showed some students up to 43% of their credits are lost when they transfer. It's not okay. You want to talk about injustice? It's not okay. The minute we transfer somebody from one institution to another, whether it be a 2-year to 4-year, or 4-year to 4-year, or 2-year to 2-year, and we don't accept their credits, that's not okay. At the University of Louisville, we have a great example of this. Someone brought in a UCLA math class. UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. You ever heard of that place? Pretty good school, right? Guess what we didn't articulate for college algebra into U of L? We didn't accept college algebra from UCLA. What the heck? Did they teach it differently? Oh man, they're really struggling as an institution from what I hear academically. And MIT.
They did not MIT calculus. Just want to throw that out there.
Now, this is not a knock. This is absolutely not a knock on our transfer articulation as a whole, because we're just following the rules. We're doing our best within these offices just to make it happen. But we got to change the rules. We got to find a way to maximize every single credit that a person brings. Because what message are you sending to that person if you don't acknowledge their credit? Wherever you went wasn't good enough. Well, this class probably isn't like the one we teach. You need to do something different. It doesn't send a message that encourages and engages that person to jump in full-fledged into the academic interaction. So it's really important. And then prior learning assessment, whether it's CLEP or DSST or portfolio, we have to implement this. So I have a prediction. This is my Nostradamus prediction, and you have to quote me if you use it someday. What did we think of online education 10 years ago? Think back in your mind. Well, you're an innovator. Oh, it's low quality. It's a problem. Like, this flies in the face of everything we want to do as academics. This is an issue. Well, today, we know that Ivy League schools have fully online programs. So what do we think about online education today? Still many skeptics, but some broad acceptance. 10 years from today, you will feel about PLA the way you feel about online education today. Ivy League schools will be using PLA, and so many will be jumping in and loving PLA more than they do today. And that's because of industry partnerships. So when we do that, we really advance that. So just to wrap up, I wrote a book, and you don't have to buy it. And here's why. Because I wrote this book, and I had a launch party for this book. And my mother came down with my dad, and they've been married 53 years. They're so great. They're from Ohio. Has everybody heard the term Midwest nice? Oh, God, they're so Midwest nice. Well, my mom said, well, how much is the book? And I said, well, Mom, it's an academic publisher. I'm already providing disclaimers. It's an academic publisher. It's a little more expensive. It might be used for tech. It's $40. And she goes, oh, well, that's too expensive. Nobody will buy it. So I'll close with the fact that my mom doesn't think my book is worth it. But if you'd like to hear a little more about compelling stories of adult student persistence, kick in, buy the book, and let's keep fighting the good fight and get more people to and through for graduation. Thank you.